Hi, my name is David, and I'm a recovering alcoholic. I notice when people first get into a 12-step program, many of us run into some tough problems with the third step. That says, turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. I call it having trouble with the God thing. So that's something we really need to talk about. You see, the thing is, 12-step programs like Alcoholics Anonymous or other 12-step programs, when we come into the program, we're normally what we call spiritually destitute. We don't have anything we can really believe in. Spiritually, we're out of gas. You see, if we're powerless over alcohol and over drugs, we desperately need a different power than ourselves, a power greater than ourselves, because we're out of gas. We have no other way to get our lives back. So the better we can deal with the God thing, the more we gain as we work through the steps. Are you ready to try a different perspective on the God thing? You see, I believe as an alcoholic, I'm wary of any person or program who wants to make me buy into their solution to the God thing. And there's probably some pride in that, and there's probably some fear involved in that, but that's how I feel. But a key thing to understand is this: you don't have to buy into someone else's obsession in order to get yourself clean and sober. For me, maybe the spirituality stuff no longer made all that much sense to me. Or maybe it never made much sense to me. I just said the prayers. It was just the right thing to do. But I can tell you this, I felt infinitely better off as I gained my own genuine understanding of my spirituality. Didn't just repeat the words that other people had said. Because here's the thing. First point, the 12-step approach has a strong spiritual foundation. It's a major part of why it works. Point number 2, the Bible is fundamental to Judeo-Christian spirituality. And finally, number 3, to be as enlightened as possible about how language and prayer work together in the Bible is probably a really good thing when I'm trying to work my way through the steps. So, here's the deal. I want to share a way I came to a much better understanding of prayer and the Bible. Now understand, I'm not here to debate the truth of the Bible. What I do wish to do, though, is to offer a way to look at the Bible from an added perspective, from a new perspective. Now I'm going to suggest the first thing we do is unshackle the Bible from the sacrosanct, untouchable category of how we ought to look at it. We shouldn't just settle for what it says at first glance either. We shouldn't just settle for what a friend tells us or what our little chat says. We shouldn't just accept what somebody else tells us it says. Even an authority is just sharing their own one opinion. And where it doesn't make sense to us, where it doesn't motivate us, let's take steps to try and unlock what really can make sense to us. In particular, when we deal with the third step. I think it's our job in this journey of ours through life, to do just that. And so, the broader the perspective we give ourselves to learn from, the more likely we are to gain strength and fortitude as we are making spiritual progress. Let's start this way. Consider the following from the third step prayer. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. The words are simple. They're straightforward. This is a very descriptive petition. Now consider a second set of words. This one a line from the Beatitudes in the Gospel according to Matthew. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Are they beautiful words? Yeah, they're beautiful words. Are they straightforward? No, they're not really straightforward. Are they descriptive about this real world? No. But I am here to tell you that both of these prayers speak very powerfully when we're approaching the third step. That first example uses a more modern, far more descriptive form of speech. It's what we do these days. The second example uses a type of speech that's much more typical of the Bible. It's called metaphorical speech. Metaphor occurs when we use words that we intuitively associate with other images to portray a much broader impression. For example, we attach an image of the Garden of Eden and the Promised Land and the River of Jordan. We consolidate those into a single body of imagery, and that consolidated image carries meaning that goes far beyond any single specific word, like a dictionary definition, far beyond that, no matter how descriptive that word might be. So when we read in the Gospel of John, for example, quote, "From he that believeth in me shall flow rivers of living water," unquote, we're clearly talking about much more than just a trickle of water in a creek bed. Metaphor is an especially useful form of speech that can be used when we're talking about things in the realm of spirituality. And that's the realm, of course, that the Bible leads us into. And so metaphor is a predominant mode of speech that we find used throughout the Bible. So let's talk about that. The New Testament is a prophetic vision that sees the world in two levels. The first level is the present world that we live in. It's the world that we're born in, live in, and we die in, and that we sense mainly through our five senses. It's our daily physical world. It's a world of love and pain, of failures and successes. It's a world where human frailties abound and where temptation and sin are rampant. The second level is a world of far greater spiritual awareness, an awareness that extends beyond the boundaries of self to embrace others and our surroundings, an awareness that rises above the seductions and the treachery of our senses and all the other forms of temptation. This second level is the one where, in keeping with the prophetic vision of the New Testament, we begin to approach existence in the love and innocence of the Garden of Eden, in God's kingdom here on earth. Remember the line from the Beatitudes, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And remember the line from the Lord's Prayer, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, here as it is there, on earth as it is in heaven." In this higher level, see, we're approaching the existence that God first intended for us before man sinned and fell out of grace. To express this pair of levels, we have to have metaphors of ascending and also, of course, descending between the two. Ascending is the metaphor for things are getting better, as you might expect. Because we're human and weak and prone to being seduced by all the great stuff around us, alcohol, by drugs, money, sex, power, and prey to the emotions that all this great stuff generates inside us, like anger and resentment and isolation, depression, and fear. We need help to see through all these things of this lower level world that obscure our vision of the higher spiritually aware level of this world. We pray for help. And this help seems to come to us from not one, but from two directions. In a top-down kind of way, we ask God to reach down and show us the way, to fill us with grace, to give us strength, and to lift us up with his mighty hand. This strikes me as kind of the Protestant way, asking for God's redemptive help. It's a traditional sort of way, dating back into the 19th century. The other way is to follow that strange spark of divinity that's there in all of us, to strive for ourselves, to assume that it falls to us to undertake the journey, and to conscientiously, one day at a time, avoid the deadly sins of pride, greed, envy, anger, lust, and the others. To expend that effort such that we ascend above the lousy seductions of this lower level. This seems to me to be the more spiritual way of seeking to ascend toward the higher plane. To wait around is dangerous. As it says in Matthew, the spirit is willing, and I really love this slide, so simple. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. By either method, or probably best, by whatever combination of both methods, ascending to the higher plane is symbolized in the New Testament as a rebirth or a second birth. How will we recognize that we've been lifted into that higher plane? How will we recognize that we've achieved the third step? Well, I believe we'll never achieve a perfect grasp of the spiritual realm. Our job is simply to keep striving, to move up to the next level. And that's our task, not for today. That's the task of our whole lifetime. So check this out. The really cool and leading role that Jesus of Nazareth plays in the whole New Testament story is that he lives simultaneously in the fullness of both levels at once. He shows us the right way to suffer the trials of the lower level, and then to ascend in glory up to a rebirth in the higher level. Rebirth in the higher level. And like Jesus in the gospel, we live our lives in both levels too. That's our human lot in life, and that's important. So we need to work and pray so that we can ascend to a more spiritually rewarding life. We become spiritual achievers when we see attaining the spiritual kingdom of the second level as a way of life, and not merely as some kind of doctrine that we doubt and we grumble about, and maybe accept just so we can say we have. Now, I'm aware that bringing you this sort of perspective, this different point of view, this could be a bit explosive for some folks. But I had to wrestle myself with step 3. I still wrestle with step 3. And when I do, it takes the latitude of this different way of looking at the God thing to help me move on. Otherwise, I'd have stayed stuck in that lower level. Those impulses and resentments and desires that kept boiling up in me, telling me that they were what I really wanted. They would have held on to me. I'll close with this. A writer once said, and I quote, "When God is hidden from us behind the real world things, the contents of the real world will become our gods." And this is what the Old Testament Jews called idolatry. And you could see why they feared it and fought against it. Getting past the false gods of this all too real world and forever seeking the spiritual world that's forever right here in front of me to have. It's right here in front of me. That has to be my main exercise of faith and will and hope in this life. Thanks so much for joining and listening.